try to hide what year exactly. So I tried to put 1990s. I graduated in Long Beach State, which is here. And it was a while ago. It was so long time ago that when I came to college, they still have a football team. How many of you know that there used to be a football team here? See, it's that old. That was long ago. How many of you know who Dave Tubner is? Okay, I'm assuming you guys are industrial designers.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave Tubner has been how many years do you think he's been here? He's been here in 1994. So it was so long ago that there was a class called Process 280. It's where industrial designers, students learn about vacuum forming, injection molding, just to understand how to design around these processes. When I came, that was his first class he's ever taught. It was his first 280 class, so that was that long ago. After I graduated, I went to work at Greniker, which is a visual merchandising and theming company. They produce a lot of things. The origin of it is mannequins, so they have fiberglass technology and stuff. Essentially, theming was popular in the 90s, which is basically people wanted their store or restaurant to look like Disneyland. So Disney Store would have all these icons of Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and our theming is to be able to produce that. It will be for casinos and so forth as well. After that, I worked at an engineering firm, Idea House, used to be part of WFR Engineering. And from there, I actually learned a lot more extensive about injection molding, again, fabrication. So it was really helpful to create a skill set for myself to learn how to design a little bit better. And after that, I started working on companies that is specifically for point of purchase. There is a company called Concept Designs Incorporated in Palo Alto and NorCal. And then I moved back to LA area, which is called AGA. And right now I work for a company which is British based. It's called HH Global. And the headquarters is in Chicago for the US sector. And we do point of purchase displays for outdoor products, consumer electronics, as well as cosmetics and food and other items. So just want to let you know that this is not to show all of my portfolio piece. So maybe 80 to 90% of images you see of displays are actually mine, but some of them are not. So I just want to let you know this is not my portfolio review. Because I just want to use some of the other images to better show what I'm trying to illustrate and what my points are. So there is a role of point of purchase display as a designer. Do you know what is the role of it? I try to create a very condensed way to define it, and that is a display, design a display for merchandise as part of marketing campaigns. So you notice that I created 2 red points over there for the 2 words, design and marketing. How many of you actually know what design means? And how many of you do you know what this marketing means? Can any of you just blurt out, what do you think design actually means? Okay. Let me help you by defining what that actually means. So let's compare design versus art, okay? So, I don't know, can you tell me what you think a design is?
Design?
Mm-hmm.
I would say design is something that's created with the intent of being used by a person.
Okay, being used by a person, okay. Who's an art student here? Okay, interior designer? Let's go, okay. What do you think art means to you?
Art is life.
Art is life?
Art
Okay.
is life. Art is something that an artist usually inspired by an art, and then he creates or she creates the art. So it's not necessarily for someone, it's what's in his heart and soul.
Okay.
And his creation becomes art.
Okay, good.
For design, I think it has specifically purpose for somebody. Like interior designer design interiors for somebody. And I need to know the taste of the person, the budget of the person.
Yeah.
And then many other specifications.
Okay.
of design.
Okay, good. Thanks. I think there's no wrong answer, but there is an official definition based on Oxford and Webster. So thank you for the feedback. Thank you for giving us what you think about it. So for Oxford Dictionary, it says, design is a plan or drawing produced to show the look and function or workings of a building, garment, or other objects before it is built or made. Now, art is the expression or application of human creative skills and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as painting or sculpture, producing work to be appreciated primarily for the beauty of or emotional power. Now, you guys could just look that up on Google, so it's not much there, but let me give you my definition based on the context that we're talking about, which is point of purchase display. So for me, it is having aesthetic and creativity with the focus on the end user. Basically by digesting what the Oxford Dictionary or the meaning of it is. And art is incorporating aesthetics and creativity as a self-expression. So you notice that there's a difference between design, which is more about planning and function for the end user. So it's less about yourself, it's looking at the end user. Art is more of me creating something. Here's another difference that I noticed too. It is to make plans for the production of a display. Whereas art is usually making artwork directly. So think about going to a gallery. There is a difference, right? We are at the lower campus in design department. Art department is the upper campus. There's a clear distinction. There's a lot of similarities where you guys maybe build almost like an artwork, like painting or sculpting. The difference is when a designer is making a model, interior designer, I just saw Bruce Hatchett's window. There are some interior design mock-ups, and industrial design make models and maybe print it in 3D, create a visual analysis. The difference of that is when you guys make these models, it is not done yet. You are just showing and revealing for the sake of production. So your work is not done as just, as a student, you might be finishing making a prototype or a working model. The final part as a designer is put it into production, make it go out into public. Artwork is to put it in a gallery for one or two person, okay? So that is design. Let's talk about marketing. I'm again, doing the same thing. Marketing and sales, let's compare and contrast the two so that we can understand about marketing, okay? Who knows anything about marketing? Does anyone have any? Yeah. What do you?
Yeah. Marketing is making something appealing to somebody, so that they desire the product or service.
Mm-hmm. How about? I'm going to extend the question to you. What's sales then?
Sales would be the actual exchange of the money for the product.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, that's pretty much about right. So, marketing is actually, in my definition, doing some research on it, is to promote a product for a specific demographic, for a broader audience. It's like a big umbrella. We're going to use a kind of like this icon, a megaphone, to tell everyone about a product versus sales is a direct promotion or directly promoting a product and complete the purchase, such as the gentleman has mentioned. Very good, you got an A. It's specifically for individuals, very catered to a person. So obviously you could think of a store, when you go to a store or television, watching a television show and you see a commercial, or when you're driving by and you see a billboard. Those are marketing. And it's for people that will be just happening to drive by watching a television show. Sales is for a very small group or just one person that this sales is specifically for. They're going to try to actually get the transaction, as the gentleman has mentioned. So the difference is also that marketing is, most of the work is done before it goes to public, before the person that is designed for to actually see it. You're going to plan, like products, you're going to plan out, make all the products, make it put a production. It's now ready, and it's going to go there to the consumer. Sales is a lot of prep work and during the transaction of purchase. Okay. So just as a recap, what is designing a POP display? So my definition is a service to create visual and interactive layout of a display before it goes to production. Then the second question is, why is it needed for POP display? Then this is why I try to provide a definition of marketing. It is part of a marketing campaign to promote a product to a broad audience. Okay? Is anyone typing, putting notes? Do you need a little bit more time? Or you guys can take a picture if you guys want to. Okay, so now that we understand a little bit more about POP display, I want to show you about 3 general lifespan of categories for point of purchase. There is the temporary, there is the semi-permanent, and then there is the permanent. So let's kick off with the temporary display first. One of the benefits about temporary display is that it has a short-term production. The life cycle is weeks instead to months. It is ideal for seasonal promotion, such as Christmas, and you want to kick off for summer. It is generally a shorter production. Here's an example. 3D Studio was a Kickstarter or a startup company, and they want us to create a display. They need it fast. When I designed this layout, I sent the general dimensions to the supplier. Within 24 hours, they have a structural mock-up or prototype for me already. They just haven't put the graphics, but it's already ready to go. Took some pictures for us to review. So it's really quick. And because it's made of corrugated board, it has a lower cost of production, is flat pack and lightweight, meaning that it's really, the cost is much cheaper for shipping. And it's also it's easier to recycle and it's sustainable. The issue of it is, well, it's corrugated board. So it is easy to damage. It has limitations on being waterproofing. It doesn't hold a heavy-duty product for this type of display because, again, it's made of corrugated boards. And the perception could be of lower value because it is cheaper. Right now we're going to talk about semi-permanent, which is, to me, is like the middle child between permanent display and temporary. So there's not too much to say other than it's kind of in between. So the life cycle is months to years to put in the store. It has an elevated perception to temporary display. And it could be in the outdoor. It's a little bit more waterproof. It costs less than a permanent display. The issue it has is some of the materials are going to be made of Centra. It's a type of plastic board, so it is not exactly the most environmentally sustainable type of display. It's a little bit heavier than the temporary display, so it's more cost in the transport and has a high cost to make than the temporary display. Permanent display is what I actually mostly design. I'm not going to say I'm an expert in temporary display. So this is where I usually do my design. Most of my projects are permanent displays. The life cycle is like years. It takes a long time. It's more durable. It has a premium look. And because it's a permanent display, you can have more diverse visual impact, visual languages. You could, for instance, the LG phone display I have there, it's made of metal. The other displays, temporary and semi-permanent, would not be able to use that type of metal to do chroming, the curvature of the display. Those are a lot harder to do for semi-permanent even. The disadvantage it has is it takes longer to produce, it's higher cost to produce, it's harder to adjust, so you need to really plan it out. Again, just like when you're building a house or you're designing a product, before it goes to production, let's just make sure most of the issues are addressed already. And most of the time it is less sustainable as well. Even metal, I would say corrugated board is very sustainable, but metal is probably the second because it's very recyclable, except that it takes a lot of energy, a lot of fuel to melt, recycle, weld, and then do powder coat. And on top of that, there's such a thing called powder coating. It's a finish to prevent it from rusting. What's powder coat made of? A lot of times it's epoxy and urethane. So metal is a good sustainable material, except that sometimes there's a catch to it. Let's put it that way. Okay, we talked about different lifespan of displays. Now we're going to talk about different types of display. There's different configuration of them. I'm going to breeze through it pretty quickly. How many of you went to Target this week? Okay, so when someone say, what did you just buy? If you don't mind me asking.
What did I see?
What did you went to buy? Buy?
Just groceries.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Okay.
Eggs. The usual.
Okay.
Chips.
Nice.
Yeah.
I go to Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
So when you pass by the groceries, do you see like a pharmacy or cosmetic
Yes.
aisle? Okay. Do you see end caps like this? Can you see
Oh
it?
yeah, all the time.
Yeah. So when you go to these aisles, you are walking through the aisle. The aisle is actually formed by two gondolas. That's why it's called gondola end caps. And a gondola in its bare bone, naked form, it'll look like that. At the end, where you walk through the thoroughfare of the store, you will see the ends of the gondola, hence it's the end cap. And that's a higher visibility. It elevates, and it's an opportunity to promote items, even if it's clearance, but it elevates and try to have a premium look to some of the displays. The other one is called an island display. An island display is a bigger station. It's usually taller than the person and it's much wider. And because it's such a big fixture, a lot of times it does kind of a cross branding. As you can see, this is a battery station, and battery stations, you probably will see them in Home Depot or Lowe's, and it's like a quick stop. You could buy it just before you go to the cashier, spontaneous purchase. Freestanding display was a lot smaller. It's usually no taller than 6 foot tall and 24 inches by 24 inches, or 2 feet by 2 feet. A lot of times it's within 2 feet is because I'll probably explain that a little bit later, but the 2 feet is also, you have a display and sometimes they move it in and out. Can you go through the door? So the width, if you have a little too wide, it's a lot harder. At least have one dimension on one side to be 24 inches so you could go through the door. It helps to elevate the brand. It helps to provide information of the brand, to promote it and create the branding's style, color, so that when you walk by, if you kind of already get a breathing of like part of the, as I said, part of the marketing campaign. If you're in a commercial, you saw some of the images and style, color and so forth. When you go to a freestanding display, it'll be good to actually see those as part of a reinforcement of the campaigning style or the brand style. Countertop is a smaller version of the freestanding display. The advantage of the countertop is that it's glorifying one specific aspect of this product or merchandise. The other thing that's an advantage of it is point of purchase would be generally the whole store. Point of sales would be the cashier area. That is where you actually do the purchase. And this has the opportunity to give you one more nudge before you leave the store to kind of, do you want to buy this? And then you also have the cashier usually to be there to give you person-to-person feedback because of the exposure of where this display is sometimes strategically placed. So, just to let you know, sometimes a client or other people will actually use point of sales as equal to point of purchase. So it depends. You also notice that our industry, people use very different verbiage, but they're all actually talking about the same thing. Wayfinder and shelf highlighter. So we're going back to the gondola. When you go to the aisle, you have shelves and shelves of merchandise. They're all fighting for your attention. You're gonna see a big splash of color everywhere. This is the aisle wayfinder and shelf highlighter is a way to emphasize the product that you're designing it for, the POP. So you can see right there where that's that cutout of the butterfly. That thing is called a aisleway stopper. And again, different people call it something else like aisleway violator. I don't like that term, so I'm going to use aisleway stopper. Now, you also notice over there, down here where there's a band on it, underneath, that is called a riser. It elevates, it's like a pedestal. When you want to go metal, you put it up, people put you on a pedestal, right? And for the display to have a pedestal, it rises up, it elevates the value of the product, and it creates a uniformity. If you have different products together, you encompass this brand, and that's the purpose of this point of purchase. Another part is to this section here. This display is, they call it a shelf merchandiser. Behind that, these products, they have something called pusher. There's a coil spring, and it pulls everything to the front. So it creates maximum visibility, even though, let's say, it holds 5. Now it holds only 2 because people are buying it. It's still in the front, not all the way in the back into the shadow. Let's see what the other ones. That one, I will talk about that one a little bit more later, but that's also a shelf merchandiser. The advantage of that one is you have a space. A lot of time it'll be, the general guideline is about 10 inches between the shelf space. If there's a small and stubby little product, if I could put that, I have this empty real estate here, I could elevate one more and just put more products in to let you be able to get more varieties, more selections, more colors, and you could stock up more. And this one would be a full merchandising display system. And you can see there's the aisleway stopper to the side. It became a bookend to your product, to the branding. On the top of the shelf, there's different wedges. It's almost like this. Here's an example. It's part of that system. They call it the wedge system for Burt's Bees. It's have all the products here. but then you could also put another product on top to stack it. Another way of merchandising became more organized. You put your logo here, and that really helps. And last but not least, you put a sign on the top, which is a lot of times we call it just a header. You also notice that on the shelf where there's they call it a price channel. Do you guys know what a price channel is? Usually when you look for a product, what's the price? There's a channel right there, they put the price. Instead of being blank, you could put a graphic there, and you can see right here that Burt's Bees put a wood shelf. Their image and their branding is they want natural. They want to call themselves a natural cosmetic lineup, right? So that actually created a feel that this is all Burt's Bees, and there's a message to try to portray to you. Dump bins and pallet displays. Who do you guys think you've last seen a pallet displays? Where do you guys think you might have seen it? Actually, I don't know if you guys have been to Costco much. But where have you seen it?
Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart. This is going to be categorized as, I would say, a temporary display because it's made of corrugated board usually. And the advantage of that is the pallet display is everything is pre-packed, merchandise is already in there. They could get a forklift, dump it down, take the wrappings out, it's ready. It's quick and dirty, and once the merchandise is done, they pull another pallet in, and it's quick and easy for you then. Dump in is for a lot of times it's for smaller merchandise that could be random, like plush, like stuffed animal or tiny little souvenir baseball or football or something, right? Like I did right here with the sports center. I don't think ESPN Zone in downtown Disney is there anymore, but before that they have a sports center store, and I created this dump bin. They used to have football, but it was rainy season, so they have umbrellas instead. There's also the store in store. What do you guys think that means, store in store? Let's say this is Best Buy. What do you guys think?
It's like creating the illusion of another store within the main
Yeah.
shopping center.
Yeah, every time I look at this image, this cell, or this display here, I was thinking, it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I could need to explain too much. So yes, you're at Best Buy, you go in, there's a clear message, that's Amazon, maybe that's Samsung, so that you can put all your devices in there to sell. This one is the retail environment, sorry. And this probably applies more to interior designers because you're going to put the layout, you're putting graphics, you're putting surfboards on top. This is a Quicksilver store in, I think, Maui. The signage is up there. You're going to work with the architect, and for the POP display designers is put this layout together, figure out where all the fixtures are going to be put in, wall mount and everything. And probably this is the last one. It's the wall system. Now, it might not apply to a lot of the grocery supermarket, but if you have a, let's say, motorcycle store, a outdoor store, a clothing store, a lot of times they have, all the walls would have a slat wall put it on, and that's the way they merchandise it. And they would have components like slat wall hooks, which I'll show to you later. To put their clothing, there's something called face out. Again, I'll show that to you. You can take advantage of these existing components that they have already, the slat wall, and put the header of your brand, banners on the side, and customize a shelf to hold their helmet, for instance, in this case. Now, I could extend a little bit more for this design if I actually put a graphic in the backdrop and put a full lifestyle graphic with a person riding with a helmet, and that will really encompass the whole branding of this wall. So something to know about in terms of point of purchase is to understand the store and also know that there are going to be some of these stock items that you can actually find. You can actually utilize these items and components to your display, especially to make it more modular and easy to say, well, this display has these hooks in a specific way, but you could actually use it. The versatility is pretty important for point of purchase, because a lot of times these point of purchase displays will end up going to different stores with different scenarios. So you kind of need to make it modular for their program to be able to adjust to it. Oh, sorry. So there's all these, I was going to say that all the components include slat wall hooks, slat grid, grid wall, pegboard, waterfall, face out. And the next thing I'm going to talk about in terms of components is security. Unfortunately, what's been happening since COVID? There's a lot of smash and grab, right? So that's, yeah, so there's been a lot of issues with that lately, but security is one of those things you have to dance around with. One of the problems about security is, you mentioned you went to Walmart, right? Let's say if you're going to buy shampoo or something, have you noticed what's been changed in the last couple of years?
Yes.
What is it?
I've seen it in other places too. They just start locking things up.
Yeah.
Like in the plastic, these sheen things. They have to ask for assistance to unlock.
Yeah. How does it make you feel when you try to buy something when you go there?
Annoyed more than anything else.
Yeah. In a way, it's very discouraging to buy things, right?
Yeah.
That's the fine balance. You need to figure out how to secure your product from people who are going to steal it, but you want as much accessibility to the actual customers. Otherwise, it would be just as annoying as he is, right? So a couple of things that we tend to do, there's some different components. Like that one is a retractable cable. When I designed the GoPro, the founder says, I want to make sure that people just don't take it away. So we devised using the GoPro. Can you see those holes here? There are, the products have a hang loop, so they could put it on hooks. I mentioned to you guys about those components. Those loops, we use it to put the cable through and put a lock in the ends of it. So that way it'll be more secured. And for the LG foam glorifier, we put also the retractable cord underneath, so they could demo it, look at it, view the weight, and then put it back in, and it'll automatically put it back into to the display. Another thing we can use is anti-sweep hook. Now, generally, you notice that zigzag. All it is preventing people from grabbing the products all the way from the back and then pull it out, put it into the backpack, and then take off. Now, it's not a full security. If they want to steal one, they could, but they're at least not going to take 5 or 10 of them at the same time. So there's that. There's also a magnetic lock. In fact, that lock, we put it into the bottom of the accessory for the GoPro display there. What it does is, it locks you from able to get the merchandise from pulling out from the hook. That little cylinder there is a very strong magnet. You put your magnet there and it unlocks. And the last one is, we just designed this. It's called we customize it as an anti-sweeping shelf display. So those are basically air conditioning or refrigerants for your car to refill your air conditioning Freon. Well, they don't use Freon anymore, but you know what I'm saying. We put a acrylic panel, so you pull out with one hand, grab one product from the other. You cannot try to grab them all. And you notice there's a wire on the bottom to prevent from just scooping everything out. You just can only get one at a time. What you notice is that this is a balance of trying to be a theft deterrent and not a complete security. Because if someone really wants to steal the GoPro, they'll just bring a wire cutter, right? I'm not encouraging you guys to do that, okay? So, but if you really want to, you could. This is more of a deterrent for the casual buyer who's maybe just want to see an opportunity to steal. So that's the fine balance, because if you do a high security, again, it's not accessible, and at the same time, it's also discouraging for people to get the product. Okay, so let me talk about the approach, how to approach designing a POP display. So you guys are product designer, industrial designer. So I'm trying to show you a slight difference between product designer and a POP display designer. And it's very simple, only 3 points. Usually product designers have longer display, longer deadline, bigger budget, and bigger quantity, okay? And the reason for that is a lot of the end user you might have to make sure that the material works well. If you're gonna design a baby product, make sure that it's safe for the baby. You guys have to do a lot more of the retail display, R&D research for it. Whereas POP is, a lot of times it's in the tail end of a process of a product, and then they're gonna have to think about, okay, how do we merchandise this? How do we put this into the stores that has higher visibility? And as rightfully so, you want to sell your product, not the display itself. Right now, in terms of approaching a project, there's a mindset that you have to have, which is you're actually designing, this project would actually have 3 clients. Can you guess which clients they are? Every time you have a project for a POP display, 3 clients. Okay, the first one will be actually the brand itself, the company, right? They're the ones who's actually giving you the paycheck. However, the second client would be the store. When you put a display into a store like REI, Target, CVS, or even Walmart, especially Walmart, there will be merchandise. They actually have booklets to tell you what you can put in, what's the sizing, what kind of material it is. Can you imagine having a very toxic material display at REI? No, they have a booklet to say we want to make sure that it's sustainable because that is not what our customer wants. And the last one will be the shopper. So these are the 3 clients you have to think about when you're designing a display. So whenever I get a project, there'll be a lot of things that I need to know. But I usually have a checklist, because sometimes project manager would come in, hey, we need this product, this project, this display, make it. And I said, I don't know enough information, you're not giving me enough. So here's a checklist that I like to ask the project manager for this designing a point of purchase display. Number 1 is, what type of display it is. Is it a temporary, short-term, long-term? Is it going to be a countertop display? Is it going to be a freestanding display? The second one is, what is the dimension of the display itself? Because again, if you look at a client, let's say the second client, which is the store, they might have a limitation of how much they will allot to you. So you need to know certain things like that, certain criteria. And here's another example. A typical freestanding display I mentioned to you should be within 6 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. However, in APAC meaning Asian Pacific region, in terms of where these display might be going, their limitation is not going to be 6 foot, it's actually 4 foot, 48 inches. And partially the reason is because demographically, Asians in the regions are usually shorter. And if you have a really tall, it becomes a wall. The display is very tall, it becomes a wall. And therefore, they do not have a line of sight, and they cannot see the door, so they cannot see both the customer and the person that's going to steal your products. So, in fact, 2 weeks ago, we were working on a project. We need to have 2 versions. There's a 6 foot tall one, fixture to hold a bunch of mugs, and then there's a 4 foot version. Okay, so the next thing we have is we need to know who the customer is for designing this display. So here's an example, and this is actually interesting where it's not exactly point of purchase display. I was asked to create a self-checkout kiosk. So you just walk right in and do your thing, right? But you need to know the people that are going there. And one of the requirements for this is, because it's a store environment, they have a certain code that needs to be followed, which is ADA approved. So you need to make sure that this self-checkout kiosk has wheelchair accessibility to it. So you kind of need to have all these things to play at hand. So ergonomics is important for this. The next point is, what is the product sizing? What is their graphics? How does it look? It'll be great if you can get a digital format so you could already have it in your model when you're designing. Are you guys using SolidWorks? Okay, so SolidWorks. There's also, for architect or interior design, I think you guys use SketchUp, right? Okay. Our company we use both SketchUp and SolidWorks. I'm more towards the design engineering side, so that's great. A lot of times the products will come in, it could be digital, and it could be sometimes just an information with an image. The best thing is to have the actual physical products, because at the end, you need to verify your own, what the dimensions are. I have seen information about the dimension of the product being about an 1/8 inch off to a 1/4 inch off. It's really bad, but it's a starter point to start the concept. In fact, just want to let you know that sometimes these samples are very nice, because we got boxes of these chocolates, so we had them in our fridge for a few months, because afterwards they said, okay, everyone just grab some, because we're not going to send them to the the factory to make it. Yeah, I got some samples. I actually got a GoPro too. Okay, the last thing is a style guide. Is there any graphic designers here? Okay, have you heard of what style guide is? Okay, maybe you can help me explain it. Style guide is a company with a brand, a message they want to portray. So here's an example from Burt's Bees. When the style guide or brand guidelines, they will tell you, this is what the logo, how it's going to be placed. I don't want it to be too competing with images in the backdrop. So it has to be yellow or white, and you cannot have anything busy around it. So you can see how Burt's Bees is, and this is actually pretty typical, where when there's a logo, and for instance, Burt's Bees has a B, they use the B as a reference of how much space, margin it has to be around, or you need to have the tagline. The other thing is what kind of fonts they want you to use. You cannot use the standard Arial or Times for Burt's Bees, for instance. Images, what you can use and what you cannot use. Sometimes, I remember Burt's Bees, they want that more granola look to it, so the images are not the clean-cut, real high contrast. They want that more sheen, less contrast, very kind of more outdoorsy look to it. So those are little style that they would provide for us as a reference. So that would help us designing even POP displays, so we will know what kind of color we'll be using, what kind of finish we'll be using, and what kind of images they want us to put into when we do our displays. If you guys have not heard of Style Guide, you could go to the website and actually just do a search. You could use this website or go to Starbucks, type in Style Guide, and this would actually come up, and you can see it as an example of what Style Guide looks like. The last three would be quantity, budget, and deadline. Those three are very important. I think almost any project, these three are the most important thing to evaluate. The reason why quantity and budget is important, those are the two things I really think about. First thing I would ask is because knowing the quantity and the budget would help me dictate what process I'll be using. And then I'll show that later, but more example later. Here's an example. As I said, I showed this to you earlier. This is an injection molded piece, and this one is a fabricated piece. And fabrication means you produce something by sawing it, welding it, drilling it, adding things on. Whereas injection molded piece is melting plastic, put it high pressure into a mold, and all the details are there already. So this is a core. It has all the, I don't know, maybe within 30 seconds and a few cavities. You already produce this with all the details. Fabrication is this, where there's a sheet, an acrylic sheet, cut it, someone had to weld them all, and then put it together. It takes a lot more secondary process for this. And why am I showing this to you about budgeting? Because this costs a lot more to make the mold. But once you make the mold, you can make 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And there's no secondary process on this one. This one, no tooling costs, the initial cost is not needed, but the more you produce, the more labor it costs, okay? So I want to show you, in terms of the deadline, I want to show you what a typical timeline is for a project from beginning to the end. There's design, there's engineering, estimating. Every time when you go through this, there's an approval time with the clients. They need to be approved. Then they have prototype to see if it works well, get all the nicks out, and the production, fulfillment, and distribution. For POP display, a lot of time it's about 2.5 months to 6 months. Product design should be a lot longer than that. You know, like for instance, iPhone takes about a few years, maybe, if not more. But it depends on the product, obviously. But this is a general guideline. Point of purchase display, there are some that actually takes a while to, like, again, the GoPro and the LG. That took me a few months to refine it to a certain point where we get all the nicks out, especially for the video. Make sure that the video works, who to source those videos to be displayed. So right now, I'm going to dive into case studies of projects I've done in the past and how to optimize costs. Now, I talked about earlier that point of purchase display has a limited budget a lot of times. So I'm trying to maximize visual impact with the limited budget that I have. And I'm going to talk about that in terms of cost optimization based on my case scenario, so that it'll help a little bit more. So the first one is the one I mentioned to you earlier, which is the case study for Burt's Bees Shelf Merchandiser. So here's the criteria. They want the shelf merchandiser to fit all 3 products. Now you notice the shapes are all different. Even the 2 boxes, their width are different. They need to be stackable. I mentioned to you they want us to have a second tier, so that they could maximize more of the merchandising and take advantage of that empty space in terms of elevation wise. They need to put side by side to make it look good. They need to fit the company branding. Again, you could use the style guide. And they need to have the price tag in front. So the challenge of having stackability with a limit, again, the shelves are generally about, as a guide, to be within 10 inches. The challenge is you got a 1¼ inch price tag. That wastes a lot of space. Then you got 2. Then you got 2.5 inch. Can you do all those and put all the products at the same time to be less than 10 inches? Those are some of the challenges. They had mentioned that they need quantities of 9,000. And we're going to revisit this part. When I have these criteria here, when I have all these criteria here, we usually huddle together with all the disciplines, which is the designers, the engineers, the estimators, and production. We put our heads together, this initial meeting really helped me to figure out a direction of how to design it, because for instance, it is 9,000 pieces, I know that I was able to talk to the production, can we do it in injection molding, for instance? Those are the questions I could ask. What kind of limitation can I use? Do I need to use fabrication or not? What kind of material can we use, and how thick the wall thickness of these display is going to be? Sometimes it's actually good to call the suppliers, because the suppliers have insights of what they can produce to help you provide more information to help you save costs. You could do it this way, you could do a different configuration. And if you do it this way, sometimes my bosses tell me if we do this a lot more, it actually, depending on the project, we could skip over and save about 3 weeks of this whole process, because when I started the design, I already did the model in SOLIDWORKS. Knowing some of the information of how to produce it, I actually did enough that the engineer just said, that's really good, I just need to fine tune it, I don't have to build from scratch. So again, one of the advantages of that meeting is to be able to establish that we could use injection molding, but we also have more discussion. How do we make moving parts? Do we need to make moving parts to fit all 3 categories of these products? How to make it fit? Do we need attachments, fasteners to make it to a second tier? And is there a way to reduce the cost of the molding, which is how to make the injection, because they cost a lot. I think overseas, some of the mold about this big would cost about $3,000, and it's 3 times the cost domestically. So any little bit of simplicity helps. So that is my goal, trying to simplify it. Here's an example. I'm going to use SpaceX. I did not design this, okay? So version 1 for their rocket booster is, as you can see, is very complicated. And as you can see, by the 3rd generation, it has been simplified. And when you simplify it, it reduces a lot more error. It reduces the cost. Now, for the display I'm going to be designing here, if I start putting fasteners, it'll be like Lego. How many of you guys have Lego? Are you guys still playing with it? I think it's good, because it generates, I don't know, I think we should use Lego to do industrial design, so you can build models, right? The problem is, let's say you bought a Millennium Falcon Lego kit. There's so many pieces, you might end up losing 1 or 2 of them. It's the same thing here. If you have more pieces, you might end up losing it in the store. A box boy might just throw it and not even sure what it was, and then you cannot display it at a display. Okay, so it's good to strive to be simplified. Less part, the better. So right here, I'm showing you that I did a sizing analysis. I get the sizing of the products. Right here, you can see, I'm trying to see by how much space I need. Can I do a second tier to make it within 10 inches? I also strategized that, remember I talked to you about the price tag being 1¼ inch? I angled it so that I could reduce the height overall. So some of these are, I think I like the look of it, but there's a lot of functionality to the look. So let's talk about injection molding. How many know more about injection molding? The industrial designer knows, right? Okay, so I'll do it really quick. My objective for a injection molded piece is to only have 2 parts mold, not more than that. No 3 or no 4. And the reason for that is, I'll try to give you an explanation of it. When you do injection molding, the lighter red area, they're pretending that is the plastic pellets going into the injection machine. The red is the cavity of the mold. You push it in, impact it, it creates the injection molding piece. Now, I want to show you when you break it down. For this one, it's a 3-part mold. There's the main part right here, the secondary part. The one that's going up, it's a slider. That's a 3rd-part mold. What's the problem is, it costs more to make a 3-part mold than the second one, because now you need to have a track, you have a mechanism to pull it out, and it costs a lot more. So the less parts to make the mold, the better. So my objective is trying to make it as a 2-part mold. This is how the design ended up looking. I create an extra piece, minimalize how much that needs to be able to do the stackability, no fasteners. This is an injection mold piece, so they have little tabs that I could lock in. How I tackle the issue of having 3 different products with their sizing is I create different cavities. You can see the bottom here, that each product land on a specific platform. And the lowest one is the puck right there, where I have a little round tracks that you could follow. And that way, the shelf merchandiser allow all the products to be aligned and not having a little wiggly, disorganized look to them. And this is to show the presentation of the client, to show them as a scenario how it will look when you put all the products together as well as stacking. So that is how I try to do to cut costs on it. The second case study is, this is called the Britex. It's a baby car seat product. And they wanted us to do a baby car seat demo station. And basically what it is instead of having a demonstration of how to put the car seat in the car, they could just do it in the store. The problem is, they wanted low cost. So we cannot actually buy a seat of a car to do the demonstration. So we're trying to brainstorm and figure out how we can do this. So we decided to use wood fabrication. So this is actually, in a way, it's not wood, it's MDF, but the process is wood. We use upholstery to cover parts of the wood piece to make it have more softer, simulate the car. And up there is a demo in a video format display on the top, so that people can give you instruction without an actual salesperson if they're not there. It needs to be durable, and it needs to have actual seat belts, latches for the car seats to be put together with that. So the reason why I'm showing you this display is you have to think of what the supplier is doing when they're calculating the parts and the cost. And one of the things is, they're going to be buying typically a 4x8 MDF wood. And you see all the wood grain area? Those are scraps. So the goal I have is, it's such a big display and the budget is so limited, I need to maximize how little scraps I can obtain or accomplish by fudging the slight little dimensions, maximize the yield. So those are some of the strategies that's happened. In fact, when I first got a quote for this display, it cost a lot more. And I was like, whoa, is it really that much more expensive? And then within 20 minutes, oh, I'm sorry, there's an update. And it costs about 40% less. And it's because he realized I'm actually create a jigsaw puzzle to be within the 4x8 board, and then reduces a lot more of the scraps. Initially, he thought there was going to be a lot more scraps it'll be producing. Here I am testing out the station. Actually, the guy, my coworker to the left, he was actually trying to figure out where to mount the seatbelt. Okay, this is the final case study. So this is the GoPro display. I'm trying to emphasize, as much as I'm telling you how to reduce the cost from injection molding to maximum yield of 4x8 boards and so forth, it is important for you to understand that your job is to make sure that these display would attract all the customers from your, the 3 clients I mentioned to you about, the company, the store, as well as the shopper themselves. So you need to provide a good interface, good storytelling of your display, and allowing them to just be attracted by it, right? So this one is GoPro, and my objective for this one is visually, aesthetically, I'm trying to reduce the visual weight to it. You see on the view right here, it looks like the display is on a very slender pillar. But in fact, on the side view, you can see it's actually very bulky. I put it far back to create a more reinforcement of stability. And you can see on the top view, it's actually tapered in so that you can hide that bulkiness to it. The other important things about why the thickness is there for this pillar is that there has to be including power strip, a device to play the video, mounting bracket for the television or the video, and having the display to recess a little bit so it doesn't look like it really sticks out, and it creates a better leverage to it. The other thing about it is also I want to have a hierarchy of visual order. Your eye level would be at where the video is. So that's the first thing you're doing, because the video is what actually sells GoPro, right? Can you imagine having ads and they're just saying, oh look, this is cool, but no video, right? They want to show you that you could show off, basically, everything you've done in the extreme sports. Then the second tier of the hierarchy visual order would be all the products. Oh, here it is. On the cave, we put LED lights to shine it. And then the last one would be the accessory, which is all the hooks on the bottom. So those are the order of the hierarchy. So you're kind of telling the story to the shopper. The last thing is, this is going back to the cost optimization, is to make sure that it is UPS shippable. So those are a couple of things that we typically do when we're doing a display. Is it UPS shippable? Can you break it apart? So I'm going to go back to the photo. You'll see a part line here. Maybe it's not so great here, but it actually splits in 2 pieces. So this will be delivered by UPS with 3 packages, so that the UPS guy can have one person carry the display. If you have a heavy single piece like this, there's a lot of dead space for the packaging. That costs more money because now your box is a bigger volume. Then because it's so big, you have to require a special delivery, which you need 2 people to deliver to the store. By splitting into 3, it reduces the cost. But I'm trying not to increase all of the, I'm trying not to compromise the aesthetic to it too. So one good thing about having a design is that sometimes when you go to the store, you actually happen to find your display. And it's very gratifying to see that your display is being used in the right context and everything. So right here, my wife and I actually went to New Zealand. I went skiing and then I saw, hey, there's we're in the southern hemisphere and there's one of the designs I have. So it's kind of cool. I really enjoy having that type of gratification that is being used. Is the most, like, seeing my display and being productive. So as a takeaway, as a closing, I know you guys are tired. You could get more food if you want. As a takeaway, I hope that you will be able to gain more knowledge about and understanding about POP display industry, and that the insights of how to better understand production processes will both enhance your visual impact of your display and reduce costs simultaneously. The third point is to understand the importance of working together. I'm not sure, does the program talk about concurrent design? Okay, that's important because we actually do that a lot, to not be isolated in your design and not knowing how it's going to be produced, not knowing everything else. It's good to group together, to appreciate the engineers and not be opponents of them, and not be opponents to the estimator, the production managers. And the last thing is, I hope that when you guys go to a store, even Walmart, that you will understand and start thinking, why do they do that? Why do they lock things up? And what are the process? So that's about it. So hopefully, and thank you for staying awake.